Hey guys. I actually traveled much longer than that. I was in London. From London, I went to Singapore, Bangalore, went to see my parents in Trivandrum, Kerala. I'm here, and I'm leaving tomorrow for Bangalore. Actually, tonight for Bangalore. So I've traveled a lot more. No offense to the gentleman who was standing at the last row there. But look, what I want to do is I've got 20 minutes to tell a story of 20 years. And I'm not a supply chain guy. I actually joined Lenovo to start their e-commerce business 20 years ago. But what I'll tell you is that in the last 20 years, e-commerce, I've seen e-commerce transform dramatically. But I'll also tell you that supply chain has been one of the things that's actually enabled us to compete at a global stage. I'm supposed to have a clicker somewhere. So what I'm trying to do is to basically put in context a business that I started, maybe like a $100 million business that's about $3 billion, which is what can I manage, but also a $5 billion enterprise business. So roughly a $10 billion e-commerce business over the last 20 years. We are in about 35 countries. I scaled it from about 4 to 35 over the last 20 years. But incredibly, a lot of what we do happens from factories in China. So that's why I felt compelled to tell the story of why supply chain is important, especially in the context of consumerism. So with that in mind, let me get into this. Look, customer expectations are dramatically getting redefined. Customer expectations are changing. Whole number of reasons why. Definitely, we live in an era that is getting redefined from a supply chain standpoint every single day, directly or indirectly. The first one, of course, everybody knows. We are in the middle of tariff wars, and nothing more exciting than waking up and finding out that your world is upended because somebody decided that somebody was going to pay, I don't know, a gazillion% more in tariffs. I don't think that changes. The emergence of nationalism is very real. I think that many of the players are trying to figure out how to nearshore and figure out their advantages locally. So you're going to see a world landscape that's going to change dramatically. Sustainability, we just talked about this, sustainability and carbon footprint, all of those things, packaging, everything that you think about. Mandated, I think it's only a matter of time because, before it becomes really, really important for the consumers to actually pick a brand. So it's not something you can ignore. Direct to consumer, so this is a big one. A generational shift is happening. We are seeing a whole bunch of people who grew up with the iPhones now in workforce making decisions. They are going to demand a very different type of expediency. They're going to demand a new type of consumerism. And then when they make decisions, I think they're not going to be very tolerant, like some of us, in terms of saying, well, we'll give them a break. I think it's going to be binary. They're going to pick a brand based on your ability to deliver. Rise of technology, both on the manufacturing shop floor, in the warehouses, all of the stuff that you guys are probably very familiar with, but also AI as it relates to supply planning, demand planning, optimization, route planning, all of that stuff that all of you are experts in. I just know these words because people tell me these things. I normally don't understand what they're talking about. But it sounds very, very complex. But my sense is also that AI has been instrumental in driving substantial amount of optimization in terms of complex environments, allowing us to get better at meeting customer expectations. So far, this is not exhaustive, but these are like 5 things I think are important. What is also interesting is that if you just go back last 15 years, especially in the e-commerce space, some of these players that are big, they have redefined their business models, they redefined what they do fundamentally, but all of them have been fighting for the consumer. And it's really about speed and delivery. It's about customer experience. It's about the technology use. And I'm not going to read through this stuff, but this defines in many ways the world of innovation. This pack thing that you see probably has cost billions of dollars and probably thousands of PhDs actually working around the clock trying to figure out how to eke out that one little competitive differentiation or an advantage so that they can get a lead up in the marketplace. Now, obviously, we are the beneficiary of that, but as a pure play company, you can focus your entire, Amazon as an example, can focus their entire energy on trying to optimize this. But somebody like me, who's a little part of this big e-commerce ecosystem, I got to follow. If I don't follow, the expectation of the consumer somehow feels like you let them down, right? So we are in this constant chase to try and figure out how to leverage better partners, better routing, better everything, so that the customer expectations are met. Look, brands are built on a few things. Now, there are probably 1,000 things they're built on, but there are 2 or 3 things that are really important. Great products, a culture of innovation, and frictionless experiences. That's what brands are after, and that's what makes a brand great. Over years of time, consistently delivering on these promises allows you to build a great brand. Now, what has also been happening in the last 10, 15 years or 20 years is that customers are more and more moving towards deeply personal experiences. It doesn't matter whether that's travel, whether that is buying a computer or buying a car. Many of the experiences that you see are getting closer and closer to be meaningful and experiential. We've come a long ways when Ford said you can buy any car as long as it's black. In our own world, if I look at, our iconic product is a ThinkPad, and many of you probably use it. A ThinkPad, as an example, can be configured in 3,840 ways and built from the factory and delivered to your doorsteps. That's just one product out of, I don't know how many products we have. The point is, people want, and it becomes even more meaningful when it's gaming, as an example. People want to build their own machine. So the experiences are becoming much more meaningful, and they want it getting closer and closer to what they want to use it for. Okay? Now, the reason I say this is, as you can probably imagine, it drives a significant amount of complexity. So a deeply personal relationship or a deeply personal experience means a deeply complex set of infrastructure choices, supply chain choices, product choices, whatever it is. So as an example, my little world of e-commerce in Lenovo, we deliver about 2.7 million units across 34 countries from, I don't know how many warehouses, but a lot of warehouses, but mostly about 900,000 of them custom built to a size of 1 from a factory in China to your doorstep, wherever these 34 countries are. So you can order those and be fully customized and get to your home. We do about 100,000, we use about 100,000 parts from a planning perspective. At least that's what the team tells me. It feels like it's more. We have about 235 product families, just talking about PCs, not even phones and not even servers and other things that we sell. And then we use 55 shipping routes. The reason is these numbers by themselves are not staggering, but what it tells you is that in order for you to deliver a deeply personal personal experience, you kind of have to be a little complex. So you cannot be like Apple and say we got 3 products and we sell 3 trillion of them and make a lot of money. Most of us, regular brands, have to really work the long tail. And the long tail involves trying to deal with complexity. And that's what complexity looks like. I'll get some water. Look, every person that comes to our website, that's what they see. The customer is focused on a delivery date. But the reality is, in order for us to get there, there is a ton of stuff that happens. In our context, it's 33 manufacturing sites around the world across 170 countries. That's what it takes for us to go deliver a product to a customer in the window, general window of when we say we're going to go deliver. We'll talk about window of delivery pretty quick here. So when you think about that landscape for us, what's really challenging? What actually is the reason why we see complexity? The first one really is last mile logistics. And by the way, last mile logistics has been pretty stubborn. Over the last even 10 years, we have had the most difficulty in trying to deal with last mile logistics. Lots of reasons why. Nationalism, change of factories, distribution strategies, COVID, all of those things actually played a number in trying to make last mile logistics more expensive and more complicated. Obviously, we talked about market volatility, anywhere from anything that you can think about in terms of disruption in the value chain or in the supply chain, whether that's chips manufacturing, roadmaps, whatever the things are, right? So obviously that drives complexity. And then the last one is in our context, product mix, and I'm sure in many of the brands, that's something that is important. Life cycles for products have been shortening because innovation is happening. So now you're in this constant fight of introducing new products faster and faster and faster, and that really puts the supply chain in a tailspin. So our world is characterized by these 3 or 4 things. Now, when I reflect on our business after 20 years and I look at what's happening in my business, here are some things that I've found that's interesting. So if you have the ability to predict accurate lead times and then deliver on that promise, you can count on building a trusted brand. And you can count on having long-term loyalty, okay? No doubt about it. In our case, we deliver, unfortunately, 55% of our products on time. And we deliver about 30% of our products early. And then the remaining 15 or 20% actually late. Both the fringes are problems in their own way. When you deliver a product early, that's usually missed windows. People have, their lives, and they have to be there. Sometimes these are expensive products, so they need a signature. So it's a disruption, loss of trust. You go to the other side, it's even worse. You get additional expenses from an OpEx standpoint. People are calling you like 5 times about where your order is. Missed expectations definitely impact on loyalty and trust. So this is characteristic of where we are. But I'll tell you that it was much worse. Our predictability maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago was much worse. It's gotten much better, but still continues to be a challenge because of a number of reasons. We've been trying to combat some of this by saying, hey, can we lean into retail? Can we lean into our franchisee stores? Can we lean into people who hold inventory and try and figure out how to close this gap where somebody comes and places an order? You cannot place a custom order, but you can come and place a stock order and get it delivered through Best Buy or whoever your partner is, or Dixon's and Curry's, whoever your partner is, so that you have a better experience of matching supply with demand. And that, by the way, that trend has been going up quite substantially. Now, this is all real data, by the way. This data is real. This basically says order to delivery and order satisfaction, highly correlated. So, and this data is more about products that are in stock. So there's a big difference between product in stock versus product that you customize. Customized orders take about 10 days, 7 to 10 days. But if it is in stock, and you promise somebody, usually it's same day, next day, that's what you see from Amazon. But even 5-day, which is normally what we see from a normal distribution standpoint. After the 5th day, you start seeing significant decline in customer experience. So that inflection point between the 5th day and then as it starts dropping is roughly 13 points, okay? So the ability for you to manage your warehouses, your ability to actually ship the product same day, the product, whatever the reasons are, your credit hold, whatever it happens before that, you gotta pay attention to that 5 days. And it's been stubborn, depending on which place, which location. It's been a challenge for us. Now, in terms of configured order, which is a big part of our business, like I said, 50% of our business is configured order. And configured order is really important because as you customize, your margins go up and your loyalty goes up. And in many cases, it becomes a point of differentiation. So, at least in my business, from an online standpoint, I'm always trying to figure out how can I provide customers more choices? How do I get them to buy what they want? How do I make sure that when they go and try to buy a gaming machine, that it's the best thing that they can buy, but nobody else can offer it because it is complex on one side, but also meets the customer expectations in a big way. So this dichotomy is really important. So what this says is that in the last 2 or 3 years, we have brought down our configured to order lead times, our ability to deliver from the factory to the customer in a pretty substantial way. Roughly, I think 33%, that's what it says. 33%, it's dropped in the last 2 days. Now, what is interesting is, during that period, our customer experience scores have gone up 25%. So direct correlation, when you can execute to the customer's expectation on what they consider to be value, and you can actually get your supply chain to tune into that and deliver that promise, I tell you, this data is real. So we got to figure out how to manage complexity real time because it has tremendous amount of value from a trust, from a loyalty standpoint long term. Okay, this is my last slide, right on time. So we talked about a lot of things. I'm going to try and talk about a few that matter to me, and you probably appreciate some of that. See, customizing or customer-centric innovation is a competitive edge. And I can tell you that many in the electronics industry are moving in that direction. I'm sure that many in consumer industry are moving in that direction. The question is, if that is something that is of importance to you, then it has real value to the customer loyalty, the customer trust, all of those things. But you have to figure out a smart way of leveraging data to manage that complexity in real time. And you cannot stay still because the landscape is getting sophisticated every day because of two things. One, pure play retailers, as an example, they continue to innovate fast. And then the second one is consumer expectations, especially the digital millennials and the digital Gen Xers as they move into the workforce, their expectations are inherently higher than any other previous generation. So you got this massive need to manage customer experience because of expectations. Everybody talks about AI, everybody talks about data, very real, but lots of challenges in trying to implement that at scale, trying to figure out how to get people who understand this, how to retool your systems, your legacy systems, to try and make the improvements that allow you to extract value out of it. But there is no other way. I mean, this is a train that's not going to stop. It's going to continue. So as a brand, you really have to figure out how to embrace it, how to institutionalize it, and then go through the pain. Because I think that a lot of people think that AI is the silver bullet that's going to solve all problems, and then you just kind of sit back and relax. It's not. It's got a lot of work that's needed. It's got a lot of sponsorship, a lot of money, and a lot of commitment. And it's a grind. I mean, you got to go through the process. It doesn't happen overnight. You got to be committed. So that's here to stay. And if you are interested in driving your brand and driving the brand premium, and in some cases, it might just be table stakes. Like if you don't do it, you're going to die. So in some ways, you don't have a choice. You have to innovate. Resilience and agility. So this is about culture. This is about your ability to make sure the supply chain can navigate the problems you have. So today it's tariffs. Tomorrow it's some other geopolitical issue, or maybe it's a hurricane or whatever it is. But your ability for the supply chain to be responsive, and responsiveness comes from speed and data, understanding how you can move the pieces, modular design, your manufacturing inherently being flexible, all of those things. Clearly, some of it is in your control, some of it can be controlled by people like us, but not everything can be controlled by us. But you have to have the ability to be nimble and have the agility to change as the problems start coming at you. And it changes every single day. And then the last one, as I mentioned, carbon footprint and sustainability will be on the agenda, will be important. It is very real. And quite frankly, many of you, like me, probably want to see this planet to be more greener and better for our kids and our grandkids. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.